Chapter 363. Obito strongly suppressed the throbbing in his heart and tried to maintain the rationality in his mind. He stared at Dustless's strange eyes, and his heart suddenly thumped. Could it be, in his mind, he suddenly remembered the life and death process of Rin Noera that day. Obito's heart was in his throat, his eyes were locked on Dustless's strange smile. Don't show such a surprised and fierce expression. Dustless couldn't stand Obito's fierce eyes. He shrugged frivolously and said in a casual tone, "You and Rin Noera are the same, but both are chess pieces that I controlled back then. Even if Obito has now become the Jubi's Jinchuriki, his nature as a chess piece has not changed, but Madara wanted to use this to suppress Dustless in the past. Rin Nohara's death was indeed caused by me." With a dark and strange smile, Dustless admitted it bluntly. He has been annoyed by Obito for so many years. If he can use the mouth to kill him, this is the result that Dustless would like to see. "Sure enough, it's you. I will definitely tear you to pieces." Hearing this, Obito's eyes instantly turned scarlet. He gasped like an ox, his eyes were staring at Dustless, his killing intent was surging, especially when talking about Rin Nohara's life and death. Dustless's disdainful tone deeply stimulated him. Of course, this is also the result of Dustless's intention. This kid is now being swallowed by the Jubi. Maybe he will really become the Jubi's nourishment. At the beginning, I used my dojutsu to cause the tragedy of her death. All of this is the reason why you opened your Mangekyo. I spent a lot of effort for this. You should be grateful to me, Obito. Spreading his arms, Dustless smiled disdainfully. Do you think it's helping you today? I'm telling you very clearly, everything you have today is given to you by me. You becoming the Jubi's Jinchuriki is also within my expectations. A calm and powerful voice resounded through the sky. Dustless mocked Obito coldly. He has a kind of disgust and hatred from the depths of his soul for Obito's arrogance over the years. This kid is obviously just a chess piece, but his expression of knowing everything made Dustless extremely uncomfortable, and he took this opportunity to vent his resentment. Although I don't know what happened, a scum like you should die early. A voice containing endless anger suddenly came, accompanied by a dazzling golden light. Looking up, it was Uzumaki Naruto falling from the sky. You don't know death. Seeing this, Dustless's eyes flashed with gloomy killing intent. At the same time, the Rinnegan Sharingan in his left eye rippled. The focus of his sight was the mid-air where Uzumaki Naruto was falling. A violent roar accompanied by a strong repulsion resounded through the sky. Mahabharata. Boom. Without warning, the strange repulsive force burst out, and Naruto, who was holding the golden Rasengan, was swallowed by the airwave and was easily thrown out like a dead dog. However, this kid's vitality was strong, or his will was strong. In just a few breaths, he stood up again shakily. Although he gave people a feeling of fragility, he was unusually strong. His eyes were locked on Dustless, and there was no fear in his eyes. Good eyesight, worthy of Minato's son, you can survive the frontal attack of Mahabharata. Seeing this, Dustless nodded with a smile. The principle of Mahabharata was very simple. It was just to throw a repulsive force equivalent to Super Shinra Tensei into any place at will. There was no way to defend against it, and one could only be beaten passively. Naruto, this kid, was attacked by Super Shinra Tensei, but he could still stand up, which really impressed Dustless. Whoosh! The sound of air breaking came from the front. Looking up, he saw a black arrow whistling toward him. Amaterasu, frowning slightly, Dustless could see the essence of the black arrow at a glance. It was completely controlled by Amaterasu. The power of the arrow was self-evident. The moment it touched the arrow, it would turn into ashes. This is your choice, Sasuke. I was going to let you live for the sake of my brother, but it seems that you chose the direction of hell. Several green beads behind him floated in front of him, and a strong hurricane roared out. Silver Will Reincarnation Explosion. A strong hurricane came out from Dustless's hand, and the unparalleled wind directly covered the black arrow, like a stone thrown into the sea. Without the slightest ripple, it was completely eliminated. Suddenly, the purple evil light reflected in Dustless's pupils. Looking up, a purple giant with a height of 100 meters appeared out of thin air in front of him, wearing heavy armor and a ferocious Tengu helmet. fragile. Both of them were Kensuke perfect form, so it stands to reason that they should be about the same height, but Dustless looked at Uchiha Sasuke with a condescending gaze. Killing you will only take a blink of an eye, Sasuke. You will regret for stepping out of the gates of hell. His pupils suddenly widened, and the evil eye began to rage. Dustless's mouth raised a ferocious smile. Kensuke once again unsheathed his katana of light, and the monstrous rainbow shrouded the earth, and the destructive slash whistled out. Boom! 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 The golden slash came head-on, and Sasuke's face was pale. The terrifying light was almost impossible to resist, and even Kensuke perfect form would disintegrate instantly. After thinking for a while, Sasuke also chose to draw his sword to meet the enemy. Whoosh! The same huge purple slash whistled out, pulling a long and narrow gully on the ground, destroying the earth, and the invincible katana of light pierced through everything. However, what made everyone's eyes drop was that when the two slashes collided, the golden luster swallowed the purple light in a destructive manner, and went straight to the sluggish Sasuke. It was almost an overwhelming gesture that instantly killed Sasuke's slash. Chapter 364. The strength of Dustless and Sasuke is very different. The height of Kensuke perfect form explains everything. The two's eye power is completely different. After integrating Itachi's Mangekyo, your eye power is not worth mentioning. It's a waste of Itachi's eyes. Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan's eye power is not as good as mine, not to mention I also have Tenseigan and Rinnegan Sharingan. Dustless in Kensuke perfect form shook his head and quietly looked at Sasuke, who was about to be swallowed by the chop. The gap between the two sides is too big. Even with Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan, Sasuke's eye power is still not as good as Dustless's. Kacha! The golden luster passed through Kensuke directly. With the sound of the explosion, Kensuke, who claimed to have stepped into the realm of God, collapsed and was annihilated in an instant. Under absolute power, it was so vulnerable. Fortunately, Sasuke also had foresight. At the critical moment, he decisively abandoned Kensuke perfect form and avoided the fatal chop. Looking up, the 100-meter-tall giant chakra fell to the ground alone. The chakra in its hand was killed mercilessly before it could be sheathed. Its scarlet eyes shot a look of unwillingness, and it tried its best to heal the two halves of its body. Stubborn resistance. Wu Chen's indifferent pupils emitted a vicious aura, and said with killing intent. At the same time, Susanu's hand once again fell, and an awe-inspiring slash once again cut through the sky. Kensuke, who fell to the ground, was annihilated and turned into dust. This guy, Wu Chen's cold eyes made everyone's spirits rise. They felt a chill all over their bodies. In the face of such a peerless god of death, only the dead and the legendary god could remain calm. Uzumaki Naruto. Kensuke, which was 500 or 600 meters tall, covered the sky and the earth, and the golden evil brilliance sprinkled over the earth like the sun, covering the sky and the sun, making everyone's heart fall to the bottom. Looking at the height of nearly 200 meters, no matter who it was, they couldn't resist. Dustless's cold eyes stared at Naruto, who refused to give up. He sneered and said, "From the beginning, I hated your savior mentality. You always think that others are wrong and you are right. You deny everything about others. This is very similar to Minato. How boring. You're just a clown living in my script. How dare you talk about your dreams so shamelessly? I don't remember giving you the right to do that." Looking down at Obito, Naruto, and Sasuke, Dustless's cold tone. "No one is a clown in your script, no is a puppet in your script. Is it, teacher?" In a trance, Obito saw the shadow of Namikaze Minato from Naruto's body. His heart rippled, and his eyes changed dramatically. The thoughts in his mind became firmer. "Traitor, you are indeed a useless piece of trash. Choosing you was a mistake." Dustless's eyes were filled with killing intent as he said coldly. Obito's expression changed, and he naturally saw it. Kensuke light gathered, and the dazzling light covered the entire earth. Now, I'm going to clean up the sect. The diamond sword in Kensusanu's hand became even more dazzling. The dazzling light was like the sun, making people unable to open their eyes. The dense destructive power that filled it made people feel powerless. Yasakani no Magatama. The flash whizzed out and turned into a luster that roared down. The number was overwhelming. Even an Iron Man like Naruto was stunned for a while, and he was desperate. Both of you, come over here quickly. Seeing this, Obito quickly shouted and controlled the 9 Magatama behind him to form a black defensive wall to resist the erosion of the light bullets. Sasuke and Naruto looked at each other and ran to Obito's side. Whoosh, the light bullets fell mercilessly from the sky. The black barrier as thin as a cicada's wing covered the void. Its thickness was about the same as an ordinary leaf. Only God knows if it could withstand it. Don't worry, this defensive barrier is condensed by truth-seeking ball. It's fundamentally different from ordinary defensive barriers. Seeing both Naruto and Sasuke frowning with a worried look, Obito calmly explained. The enchantment formed by the truth-seeking ball is definitely the strongest. Boom. Boom. Boom, Obito's conjecture was also confirmed. The rainstorm-like golden light bullets all smashed on the defensive barrier, but they couldn't break it. Sasuke and Naruto breathed a sigh of relief. I have something to entrust you. Entrust? The power of Bijou? You still have such an unrealistic and ridiculous idea in front of me, Obito. Behind Obito, shining photons came from all directions and condensed into Dustless's body. His eyes were cold, and he directly threw out a black iron rod. Whoosh! Hearing the sharp sound coming, Obito didn't dodge, and the truth-seeking ball behind him once again turned into a circular defensive barrier. Clang! Sparks flashed in the air, and the black iron rod that Dustless threw out was distorted and turned into useless scrap iron falling to the ground. It seems that becoming Jubi's Jinchuriki has made you a lot more confident. Seeing this, Dustless's pupils rippled. Looking at Obito's back, he said calmly. At the same time, golden light rose from his body again, and he disappeared. Lightspeed kick. Boom. Dustless's speed was too fast. Obito didn't have time to open his truth-seeking ball defense. He felt that his chest was attacked by a tyrannical and unparalleled force, and all the organs in his lungs were displaced. If he wasn't Jubi's Jinchuriki, I'm afraid that this casual kick would have won the battle. Even if he didn't die, Obito was still sent flying with a kick, and it seemed like he was completely crushed. Sasuke and Naruto, who didn't realize what happened, became lambs to the slaughter. Chapter 365. Obito was kicked on the spot without any power to fight back. Only Sasuke and Naruto were left in the same place. Sasuke looked at Uzumaki Naruto with his eagle-like eyes. He hated this little fox. Denying everything about others, always thinking that he is right, such a conceited person, no one will like him. The light gathered in his palm, and the golden long sword jumped with a sharp cold light. His eyes were filled with killing intent, and the sharp lightsaber was enough to cut a meteorite. Pucci. A scarlet bloodstain appeared in midair, and the stinging pain spread all over his body. Uzumaki Naruto instinctively stepped back and subconsciously touched his face full of wounds. There was a scorched wound on his face. Oh, your reaction is quite fast. Looking at Uzumaki Naruto with a smile, Dustless's face was full of ridicule, and he mocked. It seems that after living with that fox for a long time, your survival habits have become like a human. Such a sensitive reaction ability should be classified as a beast, as if it was intentional. The sword wound on Naruto's right face was particularly conspicuous. Naruto, be careful of this guy, his strength is not in the same dimension as ours. Appearing beside Naruto in a flash, Sasuke cautiously said. At the same time, he didn't forget to guard against Dustless. When he attacked Naruto just now, he didn't even see the moment he raised his sword. All the movements were smooth and fleeting. When he realized it, it was already too late. If it weren't for Naruto's quick nerves, he might have died. I'll pay attention. Nodding heavily, Naruto's cross-eyed eyes were filled with depression. Sasuke didn't see Dustless make a move, and he was no exception. He felt the unprecedented danger and just instinctively stepped back. It was the first time he encountered such a terrifying enemy in his life. "He's coming." Noticing Dustless's sudden disappearance, Sasuke suddenly screamed. Naruto, who was thinking quickly, also recovered. When he looked up, Dustless was already in front of him. The golden flash roared down, and the sharp golden light was about to split Uzumaki Naruto in two. Kacha, purple chakra suddenly rushed out and turned into a hard shield to resist Dustless's attack. The evil aura enveloped Sasuke and Naruto. Despite this, the purple chakra still had clear cracks. "Ken Susanoo again." Dustless's eyes burst with cold light, and his fingertips straightened. The white golden luster gathered on his fingertips, and after a moment, he shot it with a cold face. "Wu Chen is not a good person. The road is chosen by oneself. If Sasuke leaves wisely and stays away from the smoke, Wu Chen doesn't mind letting him go. Anyway, it doesn't matter if Sasuke dies or not." However, Sasuke now chose to enter the path of heaven. Naturally, Wu Chen incarnated as God to take his life. Whoosh! The light gathered on his fingertips shot out. It was cold and ruthless, containing Dustless's monstrous killing intent. It easily penetrated Sasuke's abdomen. The bloody hole was clearly visible, and the smell of burnt meat floated in the air. Through Sasuke's abdomen, the world on the other side could be seen. "You can still stand, your perseverance can't be underestimated." Seeing Sasuke struggling with a bloody hole in his abdomen, like a javelin supporting his body, Dustless's calm eyes rippled, then he just sneered, and the huge beam roared out again. Pucci! It directly opened a bigger wound on his chest and occupied Sasuke's body. Looking at the big hole in his abdomen, Sasuke's pupils were gray and dim, and his face was pale, like a candle in the wind, dancing with the flowing wind. He could clearly perceive that his vitality was accelerating. Whoosh! Countless beams were thrown out, and the gorgeous light swallowed Sasuke's whole body. Only people with excellent dynamic ability could see that Sasuke's body was covered with dense burn holes, and it was horrible to look at. About a few breaths of time passed, the erosion of the light was over, revealing the ravaged body. Sasuke's whole body was burned, his face was unrecognizable, his breathing was stagnant, his heart stopped beating forever, and his gray eyes fell to the ground with unwillingness. "Although your life aura no longer exists, in order to prevent some melodramatic resurrection event, I will be relieved if you disappear with your bones." Dustless, who planned to turn around and leave, suddenly remembered that for some reason, Sasuke finally met the old monster Rikudo Sennin in the spiritual world, and accepted his inheritance, obtained the power of Rikudo, and opened the legendary Six-Tomo Rinnegan. Dustless's fingertips burned with black flames, and he looked indifferently at Sasuke's burned body. He chose to directly destroy the body. "Bastard, go and be buried with Sasuke." Seeing his friend was cut open by Dustless, Naruto's eyes were wide open. The energy ball containing nature's chakra in his hand hit Dustless's back with all his strength. "Idiot." Dustless turned his head and glanced at Naruto casually. At the same time, his body swayed with an irresistible repulsion force, and Uzumaki Naruto was thrown out together with the Rasengan in his hand. A huge pit was smashed on the ground, and Uzumaki Naruto was lying in it half dead, half conscious. Kid with a strong vitality, feeling that Naruto was still weak, Dustless couldn't help but be moved by the vitality of the Uzumaki clan. Whether it was Nagato or Naruto, their vitality was extremely strong. "Serves you right." With a thick sneer on his face, Dustless changed his face faster than flipping a book. Perhaps it was because of the unique chakra and the majestic vitality that it was the first choice to seal the bijou. "Don't worry, after killing Sasuke, I will extract your bijou, and then send you two to the underworld to continue your fate." Chapter 366. The Rinnegan surged with ripples, and Madara stared helplessly at the figure in front of him, and a sense of frustration rose in his heart. This mysterious woman named Yuluo's strength is almost the same as mine. If it weren't for the Edo Tensei, I'm afraid I would be full of holes. The golden beam hit him head-on, and Madara's body was disintegrated into 8 pieces. In just a short time, his body was healed again. This is the biggest advantage of the Edo Tensei. As long as he is not attacked by the yin-yang release, he can recover without limit. During the fight, his body was blown up countless times, but he didn't take any advantage. Yuluo's strange pattern was something he had never seen before, and he could only rely on the advantage of the Edo Tensei to test it. Fortunately, after his body was blown up countless times, he finally had some understanding of the strange pattern in front of him. This woman is too strong, and it's impossible to defeat her in a short time. After some testing, Madara also came to this cruel fact. He had enough confidence to defeat Yuluo, but the time needed to be extended indefinitely. It could be 1 day, 2 days, or even longer. If you have any unrealistic ideas, I advise you to stop before you go too far. A cold voice came from the front, pulling Madara's thoughts back. Yuluo said sternly, "My Tensigen is not weaker than your Rinnegan." The Tensigen and the Rinnegan are of the same level. Perhaps the ceiling aspect is not as good as the Rinnegan, but the pure physical attack is absolutely unparalleled. It's even better than the Rinnegan. The Tensigen is indeed not inferior to the Rinnegan. Hearing this, Madara nodded seriously. From the battle just now, he has learned that the Tensigen is the dojutsu inherited from Himura, the younger brother of the Rikudo Sennin. There is no reason for it to be weaker than the Rinnegan. Well, Obito has become the Jubi's Jinchuriki, why deceive yourself? Maybe if you become the Jubi's Jinchuriki, you can suppress Dustless and Uchiha Obito. Compared to my man, he is 1,000 miles behind. Yuluo smiled, her soft smile was like the warm sunshine in March. She has 100% confidence in Dustless. Even if Obito becomes the Jinchuriki of the Jubi, the strength he can exert is not to be underestimated. Useless trash. Uchiha Madara's eyes flashed with fire. Indeed, as Yuluo said, he observed Black Zetsu in the dark and knew that Obito was at a disadvantage. As a Jinchuriki of the Jubi, he was beaten up by Dustless. It's really inexcusable. Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto were also beaten without any power to fight back. Sasuke was burned to ashes by Amaterasu, and Naruto was in a half-dead state. What made Madara feel the most powerless was that even if he went to support Obito, according to Dustless's current strength, he might be cruelly abused. Madara-sama, the situation is critical. That kid Obito was beaten by Uchiha Dustless without any power to fight back. In his mind, Black Zetsu's anxious voice sounded. His hoarse tone was filled with endless anger. He cursed Obito for being useless. As the Jinchuriki of Jubi, he was defeated by Dustless. It was not justifiable from all sides. Even if it's because Dustless is too abnormal. Shut up, Black Zetsu, don't communicate with me without my permission. With a murderous tone, Madara warned. Black Zetsu was anxious, but he was more anxious than Black Zetsu. Once Dustless captures the Jubi, it means that he may become the new Jinchuriki of the Jubi. At the same time, he couldn't help but feel a sense of regret. If he had listened to Black Jew's advice and killed Dustless directly, he wouldn't have been in such a terrible situation today. Everything was self-inflicted. If he didn't value Dustless's strength and wanted to use him, he wouldn't be like this. But having said that, it's impossible for him to admit his mistake in front of Black Zetsu's consciousness. Now Dustless is unstoppable. When he becomes the Jubi's Jinchuriki, he will be even more invincible. Wherever his sword points, everything will be destroyed. Damn you, Uchiha Madara. Seeing Madara so arrogantly scolding him, Black Zetsu's heart also became angry. Although he is now Madara's dog, Madara didn't dare to directly scold him before. Black Zetsu is also the will of Otsutsuki Kagaya. His identity is noble. Being ordered around by Madara, a grassroot, can't help but feel angry. Although he is unhappy, he still has to continue being a grandson. Although the battle with her made my blood boil, the current situation is dangerous. Only I can deal with Uchiha Dustless personally and become a new Jinchuriki can compete with him. Madara's eyes flashed, and he secretly said coldly. No matter what the final development is, he must go and grab the Jubi to become the third Jinchuriki. Want to run away? Catching the intention of retreat in Madara's eyes, Yuluo's body shone brightly, and a bright beam of light mercilessly cut towards Madara. Run away? What a joke, your strength is almost the same as mine, but I am the Edo Tensei, this is my advantage. Hearing this, Madara sneered again and again. Although Yuluo can use yin-yang release, he can also use it. In the end, Yuluo doesn't have much advantage. Ignoring the beam of light, Madara's pupils widened, and the mysterious black ripples spread out. He stared at Yuluo's position, and opened his mouth to say his trump card. Will Grave, Border Prison. Boom! A strong repulsive force burst out, and even though Yuluo was prepared for the Will Grave, Border Prison, her body was still affected by the shock wave and bounced out. Seeing this, Madara also seized the opportunity, and his body quickly rushed towards the place where Uchiha Wuchen and Obito were fighting, leaving only the shadow summoned from the Tomb of Luen to deal with Uchiha Luo. Chapter 367. Uchiha Madara's anxiousness is understandable. After Wuchen got the Jubi, the only person who can suppress him is the legendary god. Even if Rikudo Sennin is perfectly resurrected, whether he can defeat Dustless is still a question mark. Obito, that useless trash. Black Zetsu couldn't help but curse Obito again. As the third son of Kagaya, he was ruthlessly reprimanded by Uchiha Madara, who was almost 1,000 years younger than him. If Obito can deal with Dustless, Black Zetsu won't have to endure Madara's anger. Inevitably, Black Zetsu blamed all of this on Obito. It's over, Uzumaki Naruto. Indifferently observing the fainted Naruto, Dustless's eyes flashed with naked disdain. He waved his hand and Chakra's energy wave hit Naruto's clothes. On his chest, a unique black vortex seal was revealed. It was the Bagua seal used to seal Kyuubi. The half-dead Naruto struggled to open his eyes and looked at the indifferent Dustless in a trance. He tried his best to speak, but due to the severe physical exhaustion, he couldn't open his mouth again after saying a word, and he fainted. He could only let Dustless move. Naruto could clearly feel that some special and strange energy wave was absorbing Kyuubi's young attribute in his body. About half an hour later, Kyuubi's chakra was extracted. The golden monster with 9 tails was in the sky, casually raging chakra, staring at Dustless fiercely. The blood-red eyes glared at Dustless, and a monstrous hatred and blood smell came from it. If eyes could kill, Dustless would be a human stick at this moment. I'm the benefactor who liberated you from his body. Not only are you not grateful, but you hate me. Pointing at Naruto, who stopped breathing, Dustless looked at Kyuubi hopelessly. His eyes were abnormally magnanimous and righteous, as if he should kneel down and thank him. Seeing this, Kyuubi grimaced and snorted. Too lazy to waste his breath, he gathered a dark energy ball in his mouth. Go to hell with your ambition. The Baijidama grew bigger and bigger. In just a few breaths of time, the energy ball as big as a mountain filled the entire sky. The power contained within it could easily crush several mountains. Not to mention facing it head-on, even the slightest energy fluctuation would be blown away by the wind. Humans and beasts really cannot communicate. Dustless stared fearlessly at the Baijidama that was getting bigger and bigger. The corner of his mouth slightly raised, revealing a contemptuous smile. The attack style of the tailed beasts was extremely monotonous. Other than the Baijidama, it was direct physical combat. The other aspects of resistance were not worthy of compliments. This also meant that they were destined to be slaughtered by others. So, the Baijidama reached its limit, and a blade-like hurricane swept up. If one came into contact with it, they would be sliced into pieces. Although it was ferocious, Dustless directly ignored it. Whoosh! The sound of breaking air resounded, and various substances in the air began to be annihilated and collapsed. Looking from afar, the huge Baijidama was coming head-on, rolling up a fierce storm, and drawing a long and narrow trench on the ground. Dustless's eyes were filled with nothing but the huge Bijadama. The Bijadama with Kyubi's resentment was extraordinary, it could drag the whole world down with it. Genjutsu is ineffective against me, physical attacks are also ineffective against me. With a light smile, Dustless stood with his hands behind his back and closed his eyes indifferently. The Bijadama passed through his body and swept straight behind him. Boom boom boom, the atmosphere was dull for a long time. The Bijadama was sublimated, setting off an unprecedented explosion. The range of the explosion was vast and infinite, but it still couldn't affect Dustless. Peng peng peng, the earth shook violently in a regular pattern, strong and tyrannical power raged, the flowing air around him was filled with a faint dry heat. Slightly frowning, Dustless opened his eyes again, and what he saw was the orange monster that jumped into the air. Its developed muscles were tightly stretched, and its sharp claws were surrounded by a cold light that penetrated through all things in the world. It was about to separate Dustless's head from his body. Seeing this, Dustless just smiled, and then a ripple of energy floated out from the Rinnegan Sharingan. The invincible attack of Kyubi suddenly stiffened, and in a flash, it was full of flaws. It seemed that some special power delayed the movement of Kyubi, and the eyes full of hatred also underwent an amazing change. The scarlet eyes turned into circles of Rinnegan. Dustless just casually glanced at Kyubi and controlled it. Although I'm not very good at genjutsu, you rushed over so carelessly, you're a good target, Kyubi. Regardless of whether Kyubi could hear him or not, Dustless was just talking to himself. When he practiced with Sasuke in the system, Dustless took everything from Sasuke. Sasuke, who was gifted by Rikudo Sennin, opened the 6-tomo Rinnegan. In addition to the Heavenly Hand power, Genjutsu, there was also Genjutsu unique to Rinnegan. Dustless, who defeated Sasuke in the system, took everything from him, and naturally, he also knew the Heavenly Hand power, and the mysterious but powerful Genjutsu. On the other hand, Nine-Tailed, who had been so arrogant just a moment ago, was now lying on the ground obediently. The murderous aura around his body had also been retracted. His 9 tails gently slapped the ground, splashing up some dust. The 9-tailed beast in front of him gave off an absurd feeling as if it was possessed. It seemed to be begging for mercy from Dustless. I said before that I'll send you and Sasuke to meet in the underworld, and now I'll fulfill both of your wishes. Looking back at Uzumaki Naruto, Dustless said seriously. Naruto, who extracted the bijou, will definitely die, but for safety reasons, it's better to destroy the corpse. A black light suddenly flashed on Naruto's body, swallowing every inch of his skin. Chapter 368. Boom boom boom. Chakra boiled and surged, the invisible air waves repelled out, and the soil covering the body immediately turned into countless particles. In the deep pit, a pale body was exposed. Worthy of the Jubi's Jinchuriki, it's really a tough guy. Looking at the pale figure, Dustless said with a little helplessness and admiration. This is the Jubi's Jinchuriki, no matter what kind of injury it receives, it will recover. Even fatal injuries to normal humans will be healed in an instant. There is only one way to deal with the Jubi's Jinchuriki, and it's the only way Dustless knows. The only way is to extract the Jubi from Obito's body, there is no other way. The chakra of the two brats seems to have disappeared, it seems that they have been killed. The majestic perception spread out, taking in the wind and grass around him. Obito muttered to himself, and his heart fell to the bottom. He originally hoped that Sasuke and Naruto could help contain Dustless, but now it seems that the idea was aborted. The two were slaughtered by Dustless without leaving their bodies. Their end was extremely miserable. Whoosh! A dazzling luster suddenly flashed, and when he looked up, a beam of light as thick as a thumb hit his face. Insignificant skill. Obito didn't dodge, holding the six-path monk's staff in his hand, and a black defensive wall flashed out of thin air, as thin as a cicada's wing, but it gave an unshakable feeling. Clang! The defensive wall swept up a faint spark, and the golden light couldn't erode and penetrate it, leaving only a slight burn mark easily blocking the golden light. Not simple, your control of the truth-seeking ball is obviously on a higher level. Dustless slightly nodded, and golden light condensed on his fingers again. The 5 fingers were decorated with gorgeous brilliance, as bright as stars, and he casually flicked his fingers. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the light that shot out from his fingertips exploded like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers, turning into raindrops that rushed towards Obito in an endless stream. Will grave, border prison. There was a ripple in the void, and the wave-like air waves swallowed everything around, and the light bullets in the sky were swallowed and scattered before they played the prelude to the destruction of the sun. Eyebrows slightly raised, Dustless's eyes swept to the northern sky, and a tiny black dot came into his eyes. It was Uchiha Madara. With Rinnegan, Madara's speed was naturally extremely fast, and after a while, his whole body hit the ground like a meteorite, splashing countless gravel. The ground where he landed also collapsed, revealing a large crater. Uchiha Madara held his hands in front of him and looked at Obito with indifferent eyes. He looked down at the incompetent Jinchuriki with a contemptuous attitude. Jinchuriki, as the Jubi's Jinchuriki. This bee is really good, bold and stylish enough. Seeing Madara's domineering appearance, his invincible aura shrouded everyone's heart. Wuchen secretly gave a thumbs up to Madara, and then a subtle sarcastic smile appeared on his face. The unparalleled aura seemed to be a silent declaration of Madara's high-profile entrance. Let's put aside the grievances between you and me for the time being, let's clean him up first. Looking at Madara casually, Obito said with confidence. His eyes flashed with ambition. Madara's Rinnegan and the Jubi were now his, and his identity as a pawn was not suitable for him. As you wish. Although he was not happy with Obito's arrogant tone, Madara also restrained his dissatisfaction. After killing Dustless, his biggest and strongest enemy, it would not be too late to talk about the ownership of the Jubi. Dustless is immune to physical attacks. I will hold him for a while, and you can release that technique. Looking deeply at Obito, Madara faintly said, and immediately stared at Dustless, ready to fight. The ground under his feet suddenly burst open, and thick arms formed by green bushes grabbed Madara's legs, and the strength was raised to the limit, and fiercely tore in different directions. Pucci. Caught off guard, Madara's Edo Tensei was directly torn in half, thrown away like garbage, and then pounced on Obito in the same way. However, the same trick obviously did not play the same effect. Looking contemptuously at the attacking Makugan, Obito waved his hand, and a black defensive wall surrounded him. The sticky Makugan directly collapsed and decayed. He is not a fish in a pond, and if you underestimate him, you will end up like this. Glancing indifferently at the restored body of Madara, Obito seriously explained. This is the result of underestimating Dustless. Well, I'm just testing how much he has improved over the years. With a snort, Madara brushed the dust off his body. He was cunning and naturally heard Obito's sarcasm, and he also chose to look at him coldly. So, did you test the strength of this guy? Turning his head and glancing at Madara, Obito calmly asked. Of course, I tested his strength. Although I don't want to admit it, but now he is not inferior to the former Hagoromo. His eyes gloomy, Madara clenched his fist and said in a hoarse and low voice, I can only use that technique, otherwise, you and I will definitely not last long. After that, Madara rushed out, and with a ferocious face, he rushed toward Dustless. I also want to see how different you are from the only one who opened the Rinnegan in a millennium. Boom. Boom. Boom, light gathered in his hand, and Dustless fought with Madara. The roar of the sword's collision resounded, and each time, it was accompanied by violent fluctuations of energy. Even the simplest confrontation of taijutsu caused the mountains to collapse and the earth to crack. Suddenly, the earth suddenly trembled, and the thick green trees pierced the sky, and the huge mysterious bud at the top was clearly visible. Chapter 369. The thick green tree extended without limit and turned into an unprecedented tree demon. In the blink of an eye, it reached a height of hundreds of meters. Dustless's complete body Kinsusanoo was not worth mentioning compared to this tree. Boom, Dustless couldn't help but choke. Although he had imagined the true appearance of the tree countless times in his mind, he still couldn't help but gasp when he saw such an exaggerated degree. Kaguya just stole the power of the tree. What kind of material the tree was made of is still a mystery. There's no need to show such an incredible look. Madara slightly moved his muscles and bones, and there was a crackling sound of bones. He explained at length, the source of chakra is actually the tree of God. The first person who obtained the power of chakra was Kaguya, the mother of the sage of 6 paths. Besides that, Madara. Seeing Madara open his mouth, Dustless's eyes flashed with a sarcastic smile, and directly interrupted his speech. You think you know everything, playing with the world like a doll. Unfortunately, have you ever thought that you are actually all things in the hands of others? In the final analysis, Madara is just a member of all creatures. Although because of his dream to jump out of the mortal boundary and become the first transcendent in history to open the Rinnegan, he always thinks that he is special. It's ridiculous to think that he is a god sent by God to save the world. In the end, Madara is just an important chess piece in Black Zetsu's conspiracy that covers the world, and it's the most tragic kind. He was almost designed by Black Zetsu all his life. What do you mean by this guy? Madara's eyebrows were slightly raised, and his tone was low and cold. He asked very unkindly. He usually preaches others. Now Wuchen turned around and taught him a lesson. He felt more uncomfortable than eating 10 pounds of flies. Caw caw caw, a few hundred meters above the void, there was a crisp sound. Looking up, he saw that the green leaves that wrapped the bud were all withered and scattered, revealing the pink bud. For some unknown reason, the flower bud didn't bloom for a long time, and it gave off a weak feeling that it wasn't able to continue its growth. That's the only way. Obito's eyes flashed with murderous intent. A man with a small head is not a man without poison. He naturally understood this simple truth. Living to this day, he had seen the darkness and ugliness of the whole world. His palms were clasped together, and cold sweat could be seen on his forehead. It was obvious that the technique he was about to release was rather strenuous for him. Ka ka ka, deep underground, at the roots of the divine tree, countless vines surged out in an instant, madly devouring the nutrients in the ground at an unprecedented speed. Everything in the world was devoured by the vines. The ground that came into contact with the vines turned pitch black after being devoured, and the humans that came into contact with it were directly sucked dry and turned into dried corpses. The scene was horrifying. Perhaps the essence of the tree of God is the highest level of predator. A look of understanding flashed through Dustless's eyes. Perhaps the divine tree was using the entire world as nourishment for its existence. This also explained the nature of its immortality. As long as the heavens and earth were not destroyed, the divine tree would exist forever. It was a predator at the top of the food chain, and the entire world was its target of bullying and plundering. After all, the existence of the divine tree relied on the entire world as nourishment. Sad technique, but it has nothing to do with me. With a sneer, Dustless turned a deaf ear to this bloody scene. The life and death of the people had nothing to do with him. It was already a blessing from the gods that he didn't harm the world. Expecting Dustless to save them was a fantasy. After about the time it takes to burn an incense stick, the huge pink bud of the divine tree finally bloomed, revealing a scarlet eye. The same eye was faintly reflected in the moonlight. What was not flattering was that it was not a 9-tomo Sharingan, but a 6-tomo Sharingan. However, even though it was only a 6-tomo Sharingan, it still retained a soul-stirring fluctuation of eye power. Seeing this, Obito's body also lost the shackles of gravity and slowly flew into the air, looking at the moon countless thousands of miles away. A look of fanaticism flashed in his eyes. More than 10 years of hard work, nearly 10 years of dreams, finally came true today. Infinite Tsukuyomi, no one can resist, no matter how strong a ninja is, they will be pulled into the dream world. You can't escape from that technique. Gritting his teeth and staring at Dustless, Madara said hatefully, because Dustless's sudden rise was his biggest failure, and the biggest stain in his life besides Hashirama. Hearing this, Dustless's eyes flashed with a playful look, and his eyes fell on Obito, who flew into the sky, and the Tensigan rippled, and his palm was facing Obito, and the void rippled like water waves, and the suction force gushed out. Get down from me. In the void, Obito was pulled by gravity, swaying and swaying. His body instantly lost its center of gravity, and as Dustless increased his strength, he fell from midair. Boom! The ground shattered, and a huge pit appeared. Obito's internal organs were dislocated, and his mouth was foaming with blood. If he wasn't the Jubi's Jinchuriki, he would have suffered such a blow. Useless waste, what's the use of you two? Black Zetsu shouted hoarsely, and immediately the space behind him distorted sharply, and a body composed of black liquid drilled into it. The space then healed, and when it reappeared, it was already at Obito's side. Black Zetsu? Staring at the strange behavior of Black Zetsu, whether it was Madara or Obito, they were all puzzled, including Dustless, and they all looked at Black Zetsu inexplicably. Especially Uchiha Madara's killing intent. Black Zetsu was just his will, and he ignored his orders again and again, and acted alone. How could Madara not be angry? Heiju's next move surprised everyone, including Dustless. His face was full of astonishment. Chapter 370. Madara stared at Black Zetsu angrily. Although he has been showing no change in his expression, everything has a bottom line. Black Zetsu, who was created by himself, dared to challenge his bottom line, which has angered Madara. At the same time, he also planned to kill this eyesore after the end of this war. Black Zetsu, this is not a place you can touch, stay away from me. Staring at Black Zetsu with murderous eyes, Madara warned him in a tone that could not be disobeyed. If Black Zetsu dared to disobey, Madara would obliterate him. However, Black Zetsu directly ignored Madara's words, and the next sentence made Madara vomit blood, and his murderous aura began to rage uncontrollably. Your brain is still as stupid as your behavior, Madara. The liquefied Black Zetsu sneered at Madara. His contemptuous eyes seemed to be looking at garbage that was not worth mentioning. His face was full of disappointment, and his tone revealed his disappointment, which directly ignited Madara's anger. Impudent! Who do you think created you? Uchiha Madara roared out like a cannonball. His arms full of explosive power went straight to Black Zetsu, which was composed of black liquid. Stupid! Seeing this, Black Zetsu just sneered, his liquid body surged, and a black iron rod shot out. This is Yin-Yang release? Madara's eyes flashed with horror. He didn't expect that Black Zetsu could use Yin-Yang release, and this simple and casual appearance showed that he was extremely experienced in controlling it. Although surprised, Madara was also a veteran of many battles, and he also threw out a black iron rod. Clang! Along with the sound of metal clashing, the void splashed with sparks that disappeared in a flash. The two black iron rods were twisted together and curled into an unrecognizable shape like a fried dough twist. You people are just pawns for my mother's resurrection. A group of wastes want to shake the world, ridiculous. Including you, Uchiha Madara. And Dustless Uchiha Madara. The hoarse roar resounded through the sky, and Black Zetsu wantonly played his inner pleasure. Over the years, he lived like a grandson under the feet of Dustless, Madara, Obito, and Nagato, and there was a shadow in his heart. The third son of Kaguya lived such a tragic life, which was indeed worthy of sympathy. Black Zetsu is a perfect showman. Whether it's Madara or Obito, they were all fooled by him, and he was very happy. Madara's forehead even bulged with blue veins. He subconsciously looked at Dustless. Dustless was looking at him with a smile. That expression was clearly like watching a clown perform. My Madara-sama, haven't you realized it yet? The mother I'm talking about is Kaguya. That is, Otsutsuki Kaguya, the first person to have chakra. The powerful voice spread out, and Black Zetsu's tone was proud, with banter and ridicule. At the same time, his eyes were focused on Obito. He looked at him with hawk-like eyes, obviously from the perspective of a hunter. Is it possible that this guy can resurrect Kaguya now? Absurd thoughts suddenly came into his mind, and Dustless couldn't help but take a cold breath, secretly calculating, and suddenly found that it was not impossible. Obito's current state is the same as Madara's. Although he did not release infinite Tsukuyomi, he did not say that to resurrect Kagaya, he must open Rinnegan's Sharingan and release infinite Tsukuyomi to the world. You are just chess pieces in my script, Madara, since you got the body cells of Senja Hashirama and opened the Rinnegan. No, since the beginning of the Warring States period, you were the hero in my plan. But now it seems that your performance as the hero is also disappointing. It's my fault. Looking at Madara with a sneer, Black Zetsu said, and then said to himself, you don't understand, it doesn't matter whether you understand or not. Anyway, everything will end. You dare to boast with my will, you're looking for death. Rinnegan surged, and the majestic eye power began to rage, focusing on Black Zetsu's location. Madara also recovered his calmness and immediately shouted. Will Grave, border prison. A strong repulsive force spread out and engulfed everything that came into contact with it. Black Zetsu was no exception. The black body that was made up of liquid was directly torn apart and scattered like ink. Boring. Seeing Black Zetsu's body bursting, Madara sneered again and again. The waste created by him dared to boast, he really didn't know how to live. But before Madara could be proud, the scattered ink gathered again and condensed into Black Zetsu's body again. Idiot, I've already said that my mother is Kagaya Otsutsuki. I'm the embodiment of my mother's will. Kagaya is immortal. Do you think that I, as her consciousness, will be killed by you? A hoarse and harsh voice sounded, and Black Zetsu did not hesitate to attack Madara. Today, all the grievances of these years must be vented in one breath. Madara was livid, and even his breathing was heavy. The one he trusted turned out to be someone else's spy, and even said that he lived under his design all his life. Madara's killing intent was awe-inspiring. Usually, he was the one who calculated others, and suffered such a big loss. Even if his mentality was good, he couldn't bear it. However, Dustless has always been calm, and his look has never changed. Kagaya herself is the Jubi, and now it's just a wild beast without wisdom. Black Zetsu is the consciousness of Kagaya. After the fusion of the Jubi, it's obvious what will happen. Immortal. It's really desirable. Seeing Black Zetsu's body healed again, Dustless's eyes flashed with a fanatical yearning. Everyone wants to reach the peak of the realm. Chapter 371. After that, Black Zetsu also ignored the existence of Madara and looked at the Jubi's Jinchuriki Obito with strange eyes. Waste, why don't you surrender? Black Zetsu opened his big mouth full of fangs, and said fiercely. That look in his eyes showed that he already regarded Obito as his prey. As for Obito's strength, he didn't care about it. Black Zetsu didn't talk nonsense. As the saying goes, things change after a long time. Regardless of Madara and Dustless, he chose to make the first move. His body instantly liquefied and rushed toward Obito like flowing water. I don't care who you are, those who block my ambition, go to hell. Obito snorted and looked at Obito coldly without fear. He held the six-path monk's staff and gently pointed toward the void in front of him, and 9 black balls came out behind him. Truth-seeking ball is a perfect technique, it can attack and defend, and anything that touches it will be annihilated. Futile struggle. You're only using these few techniques. Useless trash. Black Zetsu calmly stared at the truth-seeking ball flying toward him, and his strange eyes flashed with contempt and strangeness. His liquefied body easily drilled into the depths of the ground. I thought you had some means, but it turned out to be just a vase. Seeing Black Zetsu slip away, Obito spread out his majestic perception and took in all the movements within a few kilometers. However, the result that he got shocked him. There was no breath, no trace, as if he disappeared completely out of thin air. This guy is really not as simple as he looks. It seems to be a space ninjutsu that manipulates space, but he is obviously more skilled than Minato and Kakashi. Dustless frowned tightly when he saw this, and his mind became cautious. This strange technique is not so much a space ninjutsu, it is better to say that Black Zetsu at this moment is like the god of space, and he can tear the void according to his will. Even Wu Chen was confused by the elusive tracks. Waste, I will take everything from you now, and after waking up Mother, I will return to the world. A hoarse voice came from the void behind Obito. Immediately, he saw that the void behind Obito had been distorted out of shape, and black liquid flowed out from it. The dark arm stretched out, pulsing with a mysterious swallowing light. It was like a black hole in the depths of the universe, capable of swallowing everything. Obito felt a palpitating power. This ugly black arm seemed to want to merge with him. Will grave, border prison. An unparalleled repulsion came head-on, and Black Zetsu's liquefied body suddenly broke apart, bursting like raindrops, splashing everywhere. Hey, it's a bunch of naughty brats. As I said before, Kagaya's is immortal, and I'm the incarnation of Mother's. The black ink that had burst open condensed and healed once again. A series of strange laughter rang out from within. It was filled with boundless pride, giving people the impression that it was a villain who had achieved success. This guy's strength is not strong, but his ability is quite strange. Looking at the scene in front of him with interest, Wu Chen simply chose to be a bystander with an indifferent expression as if it had nothing to do with him. Looking at Black Zetsu, Dustless saw the shadow of Kagaya from his figure. His so-called mother's resurrection is not good for you. Looking at Dustless, Madara warned out of good intentions. The implication was nothing more than hoping to join forces with Dustless to kill Black Zetsu, and then discuss the ownership of the Jubi. Unfortunately, Madara was destined to be disappointed. Dustless just glanced at him casually, and then simply closed his eyes. Madara, Obito, why are you struggling? Our purpose is the same from beginning to end, to pull the whole human race into the infinite dream world. Black Zetsu's voice sounded again, full of endless magic, with endless bewitchment that can devour people's hearts. He said, I can make your dreams come true. Hearing this, Black Zetsu's eyes fell on Madara and Obito. As for Dustless, he was ignored directly. Nonsense, it's Uchiha Madara who wants to control the world and save all mankind, not Kagaya. Madara just sneered again and again. At this moment, his ambition was exposed. From beginning to end, his dream has never changed. It is to step on the heads of all creatures. Of course, saving the world is also one of his tasks. As for Obito's purpose, he just wants to meet Rin in the dream world, and other things are not important. Inevitably, he was bewitched by Black Zetsu, and his will was a little shaken. As long as he meets Rin in the dream world, it doesn't matter to him who becomes God. Idiot, it's so easy to be fooled by me. Seeing Obito in a trance, Black Zetsu laughed again and again, and at the same time, he controlled his body to flow in the direction of Obito. The distance was getting closer and closer, and he was about to merge with him. When Black Zetsu thought that the plan was successful, a sudden change occurred. The 9 floating truth-seeking balls shattered and turned into a few black iron rods. They were connected to each other and formed a prison. In an instant, it turned into a square black cage. Heiju, who was unaware of it, was trapped in it. For more than 10 years, I, Uchiha Obito, have seen through the fickleness of human nature, the fickleness of the world, and all kinds of conspiracies. You think you can get the Jubi for nothing with just a few words? You think too highly of yourself. The indifferent and firm voice with incomparable firmness, Obito's eyes were as bright as the stars, and the whole person's fighting spirit was high, and the loud voice was like rolling thunder, resounding through the sky. It seemed that countless scenes of divine thunder were seen, which was spectacular. At last, you have the Jubi's Jinchuriki. Dustless saw this and nodded slightly, with a smile on his face, reluctantly recognizing Obito as the second Jinchuriki in the world. Then he just sighed. The space ninjutsu used by Black Zetsu before was somewhat similar to Kagaya's, and the truth-seeking balls could not bind him at all. Sure enough, Dustless's voice just fell, and another change occurred. Chapter 372. The truth-seeking ball is a black sphere formed by the fusion of the 5 elements and the power of yin and yang. It can nullify any ninjutsu in the world, and everything it touches will disappear. Although its ability is good, it can only play a small role in some people, such as Black Zetsu. What an arrogant brat who is impervious to everything. This kind of person usually has the misfortune of dying early. His liquefied body emitted a mysterious wave. The space around him twisted and exploded. An ancient aura came from the strange space. Black Zetsu jumped into the unknown mysterious space. Whether it was Obito or Madara, including Dustless, they all frowned. This kind of jutsu has exceeded the definition of the word ninjutsu. This is outrageous. How can my extraterritorial body possess such a divine skill? Seeing Black Zetsu escape from the truth-seeking Jade's cage, Madara felt more uncomfortable than if he had eaten 10 pounds of flies. Black Zetsu's reckless actions were tantamount to slapping his old face in disguise, and it was the most painful kind of slap. Because in the face of such a mysterious and undetectable ninjutsu, Madara could only look at it and sigh silently. Black Zetsu was just a product he created himself. Now he has an invincible ninjutsu that even his master can't use. Not to mention Madara, I'm afraid it's hard for anyone to accept it. Hateful rat. Madara's anger finally turned into a silent sigh and disappeared. Even if he was unwilling, he could only bury it deep in his heart. It's useless to protest with his mouth, it will only make the enemy look down on him more. Black Zetsu's mysterious space ninjutsu can't be described. Even if he's behind you, you can't detect it with your perception alone. This mysterious technique can't be detected, and the biggest feature is that it completely shields the aura. Even the Jubi's Jinchuriki can't feel it. This guy, Dustless's indifferent expression was a little loose, and he couldn't help but clench his fists. Black Zetsu is really hateful. His strength is average, but he plays with his superb space ninjutsu. In short, now Black Zetsu is like a slippery loach, and Obito is like a strong man. Although he can easily crush this annoying cockroach, he always escapes easily. Stop here. Black Extinction switched from defense to offense at the right time. He shot out like a cannonball. His speed instantly increased by 100 times. His terrifying speed was comparable to Dustless's speed of light. It could be seen that this old man was very cunning. Previously, he had been concealing his strength, showing his weakness to the enemy, waiting for the enemy to relax. Then, he would reveal his venomous tongue, like a viper opening its bloody mouth, and launch a fatal sneak attack. Black Zetsu's sudden attack surprised Obito. Obviously, he didn't expect Black Zetsu to hide such a trick. In such a short distance, there was no time to dodge or use Kamui. He just opened his hands and an endless surge of repulsive force spread out. Super Shinra Tensei. A wisp of ripples splashed out in space as an invincible repulsive force that could topple mountains and overturn seas erupted. Even the flowing air was annihilated, forming a large area of vacuum. A suffocating feeling of difficulty in breathing spread out with boundless might. Naive, how can this kind of low-level technique stop me? The rushing black liquid made a disdainful roar, and immediately turned into a thick sharp thorn. It easily broke through the repulsive field of Super Shinra Tensei and went straight to Obito. In just a blink of an eye, it was close to Obito. Even if Uchiha Madara wanted to use Tomb of Reincarnation to help, under such an unprecedented speed, he was helpless. Black Zetsu's speed was beyond the range of Uchiha Madara's vision, moving at the speed of light like Dustless. Puchi. With a special sound of the body being penetrated, looking up, the person who was penetrated was Obito. Obito was penetrated by a black barb. Idiot, any injury suffered by the Jubi's Jinchuriki will be healed instantly. Do you think it's useful? Looking at the sharp black thorns on his chest, Obito said without any ripples. His tone was calm, calm like autumn water, filled with unprecedented calmness. In front of the Jubi's Jinchuriki, any physical attack is futile, any injury will be healed, and even if there is only one cell left, it can condense a new body. In this way, I finally caught you. His eyes narrowed, staring at the sharp thorn that entered his body. Obito's face was filled with ferocity. In his eyes, Black Zetsu, who he couldn't catch, was walking into a trap. Several truth-seeking orbs behind him spun rapidly. Just as they were about to tear Black Zetsu into pieces, a cold and hoarse voice rang out. Yin-yang release, spiritual possession. With the command of Black Zetsu, his whole body quickly liquefied, and all of his body poured into Obito's body, leaving only Obito's face changed dramatically. After a moment of silence, an unwilling scream resounded through the sky, with endless sorrow. Numerous marks appeared on Obito's body, and his whole body quickly shrank, as if he was drained of blood. His body twisted rapidly, and the majestic chakra suddenly spread out. A majestic breath came out from Obito's body, and the ground that couldn't withstand this force was annihilated and collapsed. How can there be someone in the world who has such an abnormal chakra? Dustless's pupils stared at Obito's collapsed figure, and said in shock. With Obito's original body as the foundation, a new figure slowly condensed. Even he felt a suffocating pressure. Every time the strange body condensed, the violent chakra would be more turbulent, and with Obito as the center, the space was horribly distorted. After a few breaths, the roaring chakra stopped, and a mysterious woman with long silver hair was reflected in Dustless's pupils. Chapter 373. As time went by, the blurry figure became clearer. The figure that came into view was extremely enchanting. Her eyes were pure white like chaos, her skin was as white as snow, and her dark red thin lips added a touch of allure that could cause the downfall of a country. It gave people a feeling that was particularly contradictory. At the same time, she was dignified and inviolable, but at the same time, she was filled with an indescribable wild beauty. The legendary goddess of Moro seems to be just as so. His eyes narrowed, and his sharp eyes looked at Otsutsuki Kagaya. Dustless frowned. It was not difficult to hear that there was a little regret in his melancholy tone. There was an obvious difference between the current Kagaya and her heyday. Uchiha Madara's mouth twitched violently. According to the meaning of Dustless, he wanted this mysterious woman to be stronger. You too. Her cold and indifferent eyes fell on Madara and Dustless, and her eyes flashed a little color. She said in surprise, "The dead man's body contains the chakra of Indra and Asura. It should be the combination of the two forces that led to my power. It stands to reason that the combination of Indra and Asura's chakra should lead to the power of the six paths Sennin, but the power of the six paths Sennin originated from Kagaya, and it was not an exaggeration to say that it was her own power." His sight fell on Wu Chen, who was as calm as the wind and clouds. His expression that was as calm as an ancient well became stiff, and the expression of being isolated from the world began to loosen. "Mother, this guy is very weird, don't be careless." In the spacious sleeve, Black Zetsu got out, and his tone was cautious and alert. He had a deep understanding of Dustless's strangeness and mystery. It can be seen that he is indeed different, a freak. Hearing this, Kagaya nodded silently. Dustless in front of her also has the chakra of Asura and Indra, and also has the unique eyes of Otsutsuki. The perfect delicate face evoked a rare smile, and Kagaya didn't care. In front of her, no matter how powerful the eyes were, it was futile. Most of the ninjutsu in the world will be absorbed by her. The amount of chakra in this kid's body is quite large. Under the Byakugan state, Kagaya could clearly see the majestic chakra in Dustless's body. The boundless chakra was vast and boundless, like a vast ocean that was inexhaustible. "Then I'll take everything from you first." She raised her jade-like hand gently, and with a wave of her hand, an energy wave shot out. It was a casual attack that was extremely plain, but it contained everything. It was filled with the transformations of Yin, Yang, and the other 5 attributes. Both Dustless and Madara were slightly discolored, and they had a deeper understanding of the horror of Kagaya. The legendary goddess of Uno was like a god of creation. True gods were immortal and indestructible. In my mother's time, there was no concept of ninjutsu. The so-called ninjutsu was just the evolution of later generations. Madara and Dustless burst back and escaped the erosion of the airwaves. This was the horror of Kagaya. She could destroy the sky with a flick of her finger. The ninjutsu in the world was pale and powerless for her, and any ninjutsu would be easily absorbed by her. It could be clearly seen that where the energy wave drifted, the void was slightly distorted. It's the source of chakra, the tree of God. Seeing this, Dustless's pupils shrank slightly, and his face was full of caution. Even if Kaguya was not at her peak, the enemy she showed now was more powerful than anyone he had ever faced before. There was an essential difference. The reaction of these two boys is good. Frowning slightly, Huiji's tone was a little surprised. Then, she resumed her indifferent expression. Her light eyes examined Wuchen with passion, with a hint of greed. The majestic chakra contained in Dustless's body was not enough to describe it with the word vast. There's no need to avoid it, you will be in my bag soon. A light and pleasant voice sounded. Huiji's words revealed a sense of confidence. She was sure that Wuchen was in her bag. As the ancestor of chakra, there was no reason for her to lose to Dustless. It's useless to say more. If you have the ability, come on. I'm afraid that your teeth are not sharp enough, and you will lose a few of your teeth. Dustless directly ignored Kaguya's morbid confidence. There were countless people who wanted to kill him. Kaguya was just the most powerful one in this group. As for Uchiha Madara, he was directly ignored by the two. He played little role in this level of battle. You have a sharp tongue. When I capture you, I hope you can still be so eloquent. With a snort, Kaguya was too lazy to waste her breath. It was impossible to expect Dustless to wait for death. She could only crush him with absolute strength. Kill Grey Bone. The slender bone spear shot out from the palm of his hand and whistled directly towards Wuchen. The sharp rays of light teased the incomparable rays of light and could penetrate anything that came in contact with it. Seeing this, Wuchen just smiled and didn't dodge. His body glowed with a golden luster at the same time. He stood still with a leisurely and indifferent expression like a stone sculpture. Whoosh! The bone spear passed through Dustless's body, but it couldn't shake him at all. He stood there quietly and stared at the frowning Kaguya. Mother, that kid's ability is very strange. Ordinary physical attacks don't seem to work on him. Only some extraordinary means can work on him. Black Zetsu said in a hoarse voice. Over the years, he had studied Dustless's ability and gained a lot of experience. Naturally, he had his own unique views. So what, any attack is invalid, and it will only become a stronger nourishment for me. Kaguya's eyes flashed with a strong sense of possessiveness. Dustless's majestic body and chakra behind him, she was determined to get it. No one could stop her. Chapter 374. Kaguya's resurrection is not complete, but Dustless is not afraid. Kaguya treats him as a meal on her plate, and so does Dustless. The Jubi's Jinchuriki is the source of chakra, and no one is not jealous of it. You treat me as something in the bag, but I am also determined to get you. Staring at Kaguya with a smile, Dustless's tone was unusually firm, and his resolute voice was unshakable. It's hard to say who is whose prey. At least Dustless doesn't think that he will be swallowed by Kaguya. Remember this, old monster. Raising his eyelids, Wuchen's aura rose to the limit. His stern eyes emitted a cold light that penetrated through everything. His cold voice was like a biting cold winter. No matter what kind of monster you are, it doesn't matter. All in all, for me, you are a stepping stone for me to become stronger. It's best not to try to resist me, and let me put the collar on your neck obediently. In this way, I can save your face. His gaze fell on Otsutsuki Kaguya's body, and the eye power in his eyes was surging like stormy waves, and the oppressive eye power was enough to distort the void. Shameless boasting. Hearing this, Huiji's beautiful face turned cold and her eyes were filled with fire. The words of a shameless junior who was thousands of years younger than her were especially harsh. He actually said that he wanted to put a collar on her. How ridiculous. Mother, please calm down, this kid just provoked your anger, and took the opportunity to seize your weakness to give a fatal blow. Feeling the murderous aura overflowing from Kaguya's body, Black Zetsu persuaded with cold sweat. That oppressive majestic murderous aura also made him feel suffocated. If you want to destroy it, you must first make it crazy, this is Dustless's usual trick, mother, please don't fall for it. After about a while, Kaguya seemed to have listened to Black Zetsu's advice, and her murderous aura dissipated, and her whole person calmed down, but even so, the remaining murderous aura in the void was still terrifying. Huey tore at the space in front of her with both hands, and the space in front of her instantly collapsed. She stared at the dark crack in front of her, and without thinking, she entered it. There was no trace of him at all. His aura had also completely disappeared, vanishing from the world. What a convenient technique. Seeing this, Dustless's pupils solidified, and the hairs all over his body stood up. This unknown space ninjutsu was extremely strange. Whether it appeared or had no aura, it was impossible to capture it. The void behind Dustless suddenly twisted, and a beautiful figure emerged from it. Her beautiful silver hair fluttered in the wind, and her seemingly delicate hand grabbed at Dustless. Suddenly, he felt that his neck was bound by something cold and soft. Dustless was slightly stunned and turned his head. It was Huey G with a complicated expression. At such a close distance, Dustless could even smell the elegant body fragrance on Huey G's body. The hot air exhaled from her jade-like nose also swam Dustless's side. Take your claws away from me. Turning his head and looking at the hand on his neck, Dustless said coldly. At the same time, a cold light flashed in his eyes. The golden particles in his hand gathered, and a slender and sharp golden sword suddenly flashed. Just as he was about to raise his blade and cut Huey off, her light voice rang out. I can see the shadow of Hagoromo and Hamura from your figure. She quietly stroked Dustless's face, and 2 lines of tears fell uncontrollably from the corners of her eyes. Huey G's tone was sobbing. Being betrayed by her own son, no matter who was right or wrong, was a chilling thing. Blood is thicker than water. Any mother who is betrayed by her own son will despair. Staring at Huey G's eyes, Dustless's eyes were as clear as water. In the dark, he saw through the depths of her heart. The real pain was not to kill the other party directly. With the betrayal of Hamura and Hagoromo, her heart was as cold as ice, and she completely sealed herself. There was no mother in the world who didn't love her own child. Be a part of my power, I can help you fulfill your long-cherished wish. The Kusanagi sword stopped. It seemed that the so-called conscience was replaced by Huey G's true feelings. Dustless's voice suddenly became much lighter. Although it was still very cold, it gave people a feeling of a lot more human feelings. Obviously, Huey G couldn't accept Dustless's meaning. She was the goddess of Mao, the god of creation. It was simply wishful thinking for her to be a part of Dustless. You're no match for me. I'm immortal and indestructible. Hearing this, Huey G's voice was light. Even though she was an old monster who had lived for thousands of years, she was still young. Time did not leave a trace on her body. In that case, I can only force you to wear a collar. The conscience in his eyes was completely restrained. Dustless turned into a fierce beast that only knew how to kill. The Kusanagi sword rose from the ground, and the blade slashed towards Huey G's face. The sharp light could cut through everything. It was enough to see that Dustless didn't have the slightest mercy. After all, Huey G was immortal. Even if she was injured, she would recover. She could be said to be the strongest existence. Small tricks are useless against me. Seeing this, a faint smile appeared on Huey's face. An ordinary-looking bone appeared in the palm of her other hand and she indifferently threw it towards the incoming golden light. Clang! The buzzing sound of steel colliding suddenly sounded, and a fleeting spark swept up. Looking up, Huey G easily borrowed Dustless's attack. At the same time, Dustless's body glowed with a gorgeous golden luster, and Huey G's hand also left Dustless's face. Why do I have such a feeling? Frowning, Huey G stared at the thin figure that had gathered again in the distance. The tears at the corner of her eyes disappeared. In an instant, she had an inexplicable feeling. Dustless was clearly in front of her, but he gave her a ridiculous feeling that he was far away. She couldn't grasp the golden figure with her hand alone. This time was forever. Chapter 375. Boom boom boom, the ear-piercing roar resounded through the sky, and invisible ripples splashed in the void. The white clouds that were struggling at death's door were swallowed up and disappeared without a trace. Looking up, it was Dustless and Kaguya who were fighting. The abilities of both of them had obviously reached the limit. When they moved, the wind and thunder would roll, and the earth would sink. Even if it was just a simple physical battle, the extent of the exaggerated fighting was infinitely vast and affected the entire sky. Yasukani no Magatama. Tens of thousands of rays of light poured down, and the densely packed number was enough to turn people into a sieve. It was cold and ruthless. Dustless, the caster, was full of murderous intent and developed the power of this technique to the limit. The powerful aura enveloped every corner of the sky. It's a very novel move, but, looking straight at the tens of thousands of rays of light, Kaguya just smiled in relief. Her thin and delicate body emitted a huge amount of chakra waves. Such an ordinary attack is useless against me. High-density chakra gathered in the palm of her hand, and with a gentle wave of her hand, the shadows of the fist were clearly visible. 80 God's Air Attack. Above the boundless void, boundless fists bloomed with a bang. The uncountable number of fists dazzled everyone's eyes as they collided with the golden light bullets that were speeding towards them. Bang bang bang, it was obvious that the power of the fists was above the golden light bullets, and they were as fierce as tigers. In the blink of an eye, the light bullets all over the sky were disintegrated, and they rushed toward Dustless with more ferocious force. Compared with the shadows all over the sky, Dustless, who was alone, seemed to be abandoned by the whole world, like a criminal who was about to be executed. This monotonous technique also has no effect on me. The Rinnegan Sharingan rippled, and the 9 mysterious Magatama hanging on the black lines trembled. The sky splashed with weak ripples, and the invisible airwaves quietly spread. Mahabharata. As Wu Chen's voice fell, the weak ripples instantly became thousands of times stronger, turning into an earth-shattering airwave. With an unstoppable momentum, it simply swallowed the countless fists like a whale. Is this the ability of his left eye? A mere junior can actually reach such a level. Seeing the sky full of fists collapse in an instant, Huey's eyes flashed with a little shock. Dustless was the first person to destroy her moves so easily. Everything is about reciprocity. This is my reciprocation. The blue pupil power in his right eye started to go berserk, and a boundless repulsive force shot out. His aura was raised to the limit, and the faint golden light in his hand was clearly visible. This brat, seeing this, Huey was stunned. Then, she looked at Dustless with admiration. Since ancient times, Dustless was the only one other than her deadly enemy who could fight her head-on and not be at a disadvantage. Golden Will Reincarnation. The sound of something breaking through the air suddenly rang out, and a dazzling golden luster came into view. Looking up, a golden beam of light that almost covered the entire void swept over. Dustless's face was indifferent, his face was not red, and he was not out of breath, as if he was silently saying that as long as it is possible, it is not a problem to extend it several times. Very strong. Stronger than the Hagoromo and the Hamura brothers. You are very good, brat. Huey nodded secretly. Although she said so, her expression was calm. Her jade hand shook slightly, and several black balls turned into a mysterious black enchantment on her side. The enchantment that was as thin as a cicada's wings seemed to be easily broken, but whether it was Huey G or Black Zetsu in her sleeve, they were both calm and composed. They stood quietly in the same place without dodging or evading, mocking Dustless's weakness. This kid is a problem student. His bones are very hard, and he is not disciplined. It is time for Mother's game time to end. You should collect the chakra scattered all over the world as soon as possible. Black Zetsu in Huey's sleeve suggested. He had a deep understanding of Dustless's difficulty. Mother was very strong, and as a chakra, Huey had a variety of trump cards, but Dustless was the same. For more than 10 years, no one had forced Dustless to use his full strength. Uchiha Madara couldn't do it, and Uchiha Obito couldn't do it. What you said is true. This kid is indeed unusual. He is a qualified stepping stone. Collect the chakra's hand and deal with him. Huey nodded her white chin, and the interest in her eyes disappeared in an instant. She looked into the distance and saw the situation of the whole world. At the same time, the golden light sword also came into close contact with the black defensive enchantment. Kacha, there was a violent vibration in the void, and a crisp sound suddenly sounded. Looking up, she thought that the black enchantment as thin as a cicada's wing would be annihilated by the force, but in fact, it was not. It's so powerful, it's really scary. Wu Chen sighed. Following his line of sight, he saw that the thousands of feet-long golden light sword was strangely broken into two halves, and the initiator was the black defensive wall. On the black enchantment condensed by the truth-seeking ball, only a trace was left. She's too strong. This is the case when she is not in her complete state. No wonder Hagoromo Sennin and Otsutsuki Himura could only seal her. Black hair fluttered in the wind, Dustless's eyes were unusually deep, and the corner of his mouth was gently raised with a calm smile. Whether it was the Tensigen or Rinsei Sharingan, they were not his trump cards. Although Otsutsuki Kagaya was unbelievably strong, Dustless was still confident enough to defeat her, and finally put the chain around her neck and make her part of his strength. Kacha, suddenly, the ground shattered, and a thick green tree penetrated into the void. It coincided with the divine tree released by Obito before, and the bud that was about to bloom was clearly visible. This is the divine tree, but something seems wrong. Chapter 376. The green trees went deep into the ground, connecting the sky and the earth, and the developed roots were dense like a spider web, penetrating every inch of the earth. Absorbing nutrients from the earth without limit, the roots grew luxuriant branches, crazily surging in all directions as if they had been fed with hormones. The whole world was suddenly swallowed by this dark green forest. Whether it was the Ninja Coalition Army or the White Zetsu Army, they were all swallowed up, and only some peerless powerhouses could barely survive. Of course, Dustless wasn't worried about Konan, Yuluo, Hinata, Hanren, Cheyenne, and the other girls. Although the scope of this unknown technique was extremely terrifying, it wasn't targeted. It just swallowed the whole world. Moreover, Dustless was familiar with the bodies of the girls, and these attacks didn't cause any trouble for them. You seem to be very relaxed. From your expression, you seem to know me quite well. I'm curious, how do you have the confidence to face me when you're so calm and composed? Kagaya frowned. Dustless looked indifferent, giving the feeling that he wouldn't change his expression even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. His breathing was steady and powerful, and his deep eyes were as bright as the stars. This confidence made Huey Ji feel very uncomfortable. Her face turned gloomy and murderous. If she was just playing around with Wuchen earlier, now she really wanted to kill him. Especially through the tree on the ground, a steady stream of chakra entered her body, and Kagaya felt an unprecedented comfort. She was close to recovering to the peak. That is, her eyes narrowed slightly, staring at the Kagaya's young attribute chakra on the ground. Kagaya's face was full of desire. The only thing she lacked among the tailed beasts was the Kagaya's young attribute chakra. Ka, the ground under Kagaya's feet burst open, and countless green vines directly entangled him, easily tying him up, and began to devour the Kagaya's chakra. Ao. Because his consciousness was controlled, Kagaya could only instinctively let out a burst of sadness, full of nostalgia for the world, and even if he was unwilling, he couldn't do anything. Facing the powerful Kagaya, Kyubi, who was once a part of her, could not resist at all. After a while, the nine-tailed chakra was sucked into the divine tree through the dense vines, and then directly into Kagaya's body through a special method. This long-lost feeling is really irresistible. Kagaya muttered to herself absent-mindedly. Originally, when Black Zetsu resurrected her, it was not complete. The lack of Kyubi's young chakra caused her strength to be greatly reduced. Now that the chakra of the nine-tailed beasts had completely merged into one, Kaguya naturally regained her previous cultivation. Before I deal with you, I'll deal with this annoying bug first. She casually glanced at Dustless and the space in front of her shattered. An ancient and mysterious aura floated out of the dark space that could devour everything. Without a second thought, Huey stepped right in. The most primitive space ninjutsu. Although invading her space consumes some chakra, it's just a drop in the bucket for me. After observing for a while, Dustless's frowning brows loosened, and the corners of his mouth raised a smile of success. With a sneer, his eyes were filled with murderous intent as he stared at Kaguya, who sneaked into the dark space. Ka, the space quietly opened again, and Kaguya rushed out of it. The dead man in red armor in front of her was obviously not Dustless, but Uchiha Madara. A dead mortal is using my power unscrupulously. This is blasphemy. Kaguya was furious. Chakra was something that belonged to her alone. Now these ants are using her power without permission. It's unforgivable. A voice full of endless killing intent sounded behind him. Uchiha Madara was shocked and turned around without hesitation. What he saw was a sharp-boned spear whistling towards him. Puchi. With the sound of flesh being cut, looking up, Uchiha Madara's abdomen was pierced with sharp-boned spears, deep inside Madara's body, full of some special, indescribable special power, devouring Madara's body. The invincible Edo Tensei was collapsing. Don't show such a shocked expression. This is one of Mother's strongest moves. Anything that comes into contact with Grey Bone's mutual slaying will gradually collapse, including combatants that have been reincarnated from Edo Tensei. Seeing Uchiha Madara's incredible expression, Black Zetsu explained out of kindness. Even if I die, I will take you too with me. His pupils suddenly widened, and Uchiha Madara roared unwillingly. His life's plan was a wedding dress for others in the end. How could he not be angry? He vowed that even if he died, he would take Black Zetsu and Kaguya with him. There are a lot of problem children who are not disciplined. Looking at Uchiha Madara's dying struggle, Black Zetsu's tone was extremely cold. Will grave, border prison. With his last strength, Uchiha Madara uttered his last song, and an unprecedented repulsion exploded with Madara's hatred. Insignificant skill. Kaguya just shook her head slightly, raised her hand, and shot out a strong hurricane, directly killing the shadow summoned by Madara from the will grave. Others may not be aware of it, but she could see it clearly. Uchiha Madara's face suddenly turned ugly, and when he was about to launch the will grave again, his body had completely collapsed and disappeared forever with the wind. One is dead. When she turned around and was about to kill Dustless, the golden brilliance suddenly resounded through the sky. Staring at the golden brilliance above the sky, Kaguya, who was bathed in it, felt a sense of panic instinctively. In the face of this golden light, she, who was immortal, seemed to have met a deadly enemy. Your power is very strong, but next, I should also show my power to play with you. Even you, the goddess of Uno, don't understand light. Chapter 377. A dazzling brilliance came head-on, and the boundless energy tide was like a vast ocean, rushing towards Huey with great pressure. Don't touch it. An unprecedented aura of death shrouded her body, and Huey G's eyes were filled with determination. She made a prompt decision, and her weak little hand tore the void in front of her. The seemingly weak little hand was extremely terrifying. A crack appeared in the space in front of her, and Huey G stepped into it without hesitation. On the other hand, Dustless also had a shocking change at this moment. His eyes were faintly dotted with some golden light spots, and it was dazzling. His indifferent temperament added some dominance for no reason. A sense of dominance over all living things arose spontaneously. Boom, 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 the golden energy tide was like an ancient lament, and the entire sky was wailing, faintly begging for mercy, emitting waves of mournful cries. Looking up, the void was strangely boiling, and the flowing air was emitting hot waves. It was obvious that it was evaporated by this strange golden power. This is one of my abilities. Both eyes looked at the void in front of him. Where Dustless's gaze was focused, the void distorted and rippled. Huiji's peerless figure stood out. Different from before, the indifferent Huiji's expression finally relaxed, and there was a hint of embarrassment and discomfort. Treacherous sinner, you deserve to die. Huiji's face was pale, and her eyes were filled with anger that could burn all living things. Her murderous intent was awe-inspiring, and because of her excessive anger, her graceful body was trembling slightly. Following Dustless's gaze, Huiji was in an extremely embarrassing state. There were obvious burn marks on her body, and on the right side of her chest, one could clearly see the white jade-like skin. Further down, it was a place that was not suitable for children. Her white skin was tinged with red, and it was faintly discernible, causing one's imagination to run wild. It was no wonder that Huiji was so angry. The high and mighty goddess of Mao was forced into such an embarrassing state by Dustless. How could she not be angry? I am the flash person who ate the flash fruit, and my physique has also inherited everything of light. Dustless's dry and cracked lips opened slightly. He did not care whether Huiji understood or not. He said to himself, the ability I used before was the usual move of the glistening fruit. Dustless's indifferent eyes fell on Hui's body. His voice was as light as autumn water, revealing a state of being aloof from worldly affairs. Like I said before, you just need to stand there quietly and let me put the collar on you. But you swore at me and even raised your sword at me. You only have yourself to blame. The mystery of light is something that even a god cannot understand. After speaking, Dustless stood with his hands behind his back. The corner of his mouth curled up into a light smile. He was fearless. Shameless boasting. Huiji's pretty face changed drastically. Her eyes scanned her body without leaving a trace, and her face flashed with shame and anger. She waved her hand, and the brand new divine robe condensed again. The exposed parts were also covered. Whoosh! She lifted her hand gently, and chakra erupted. There was no fancy move, just a casual wave of chakra, and a strong wave of air suddenly appeared in the void. There was no need for fancy moves, it was direct and concise. Huiji was like this. Looking into the distance, the blade storm was formed in an instant. The scale was huge, comparable to a small black hole in the universe. It directly swallowed and distorted the sky. The small black hole in the center was enough to swallow the world. The ninjutsu in the world is derived from you, but so what? The physical attacks in the world are ineffective against me. Feeling the endless gravitational force in the vortex, Dustless looked relaxed and calm. His messy black hair danced, and his clothes were blown up by the wind, but he was surprisingly calm. Now I will let you see the true ability of light. It is the ability to surpass the normal state of the devil fruit. It is the foundation of the original move, the awakening state of glinting fruit. The strange smile on the corner of his mouth disappeared in an instant. Dustless's whole body was covered with golden chakra. The evil waves suddenly descended, and the giant samurai stood between heaven and earth. This time, Kinsusanu was different from any previous time. Because the Uchiha family is a cursed family, abandoned by the heavens, only by falling will they gain great strength. Therefore, the ninjutsu used has an evil aura. Kinsusanu was even more so. It was as ferocious as a ghost, and the evil aura was more intense. However, this time, Kinsusanu displayed by Dustless was different from before. The evil aura disappeared, and the exaggerated height of nearly 200 meters was very peaceful. The feeling it gave was also particularly strange. It was as if bathing in the winter sun, and it was particularly warm. I've seen a ghost. Black Zetsu, who was in Kagaya's sleeve, was stunned for a long time, then the corners of his mouth squirmed as he said in surprise. It's not that he hasn't seen the Susanoo of the Uchiha clan before. It gives people a pure feeling of evil, full of endless destruction. The original meaning of Kinsusanu was destruction. The Kinsusanu in front of him was very gentle, and it didn't give the feeling of depression and despair, but infinite vitality. There is no need to be surprised. It is also the first time I use the awakening state of glinting fruit. It is normal that you don't know. I am invincible in this state. With a little golden light in his eyes, Dustless's loud voice resounded through the sky. The reason why Kinsusanu was so different was very simple. Dustless in the awakening state of glinting fruit and Kinsusanu was naturally different. Light is an extremely contradictory thing. Destruction and rebirth exist together, so Kinsusanu was the same. Under Kagaya's astonished gaze, Wu Chen's expression turned cold. Susanoo raised its arm high, and as if it had received the command of God, the light particles from all over the world all poured into its arm. How could this happen? Looking at the thing formed in Dustless's hand in horror, Kagaya's face changed dramatically and became gloomy. Chapter 378. Kagaya's face was full of astonishment. Her calm heart had been settled for thousands of years, and it was calm like stagnant water. At this moment, her heart was like a stormy sea. Damn kid, I should have killed him secretly at the beginning. It's a mistake to grow to this day. Black Zetsu stared at the light ball held in Kinsusanu's hand. He was composed of black liquid matter and said with hatred. At the same time, he did not hesitate to curse Uchiha Madara who had died. Yes, it was indeed a mistake not to get rid of him. Huey lowered her head, her eyes flickering with a strange light. She tried her best to pretend to be calm, but everyone could hear the regret in her voice. It's all my fault. Black Zetsu sighed in the sleeve, full of helplessness. At the same time, he changed the thread of discussion and said tentatively, Mother, this guy's strength is so strong. It's not a bad thing for us to walk on thin ice. Black Zetsu's voice made Kagaya slightly stunned. After a while, she nodded silently. Although there's a suspicion of inviting a wolf into the house, it's still a feasible plan. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. That woman's goal is all living things, including me. This little brat called Wu Chen is also her prey. Especially someone with such shocking strength like him, that B***-starred woman absolutely has no reason to let him go. After all, this is the blood that makes her stronger. Kagaya's mind fell into memories, recalling the mysterious woman who had invaded this land. Her face was gloomy. It was because she was not the opponent of that woman that she released the big illusion of infinite Tsukuyomi to the whole world and turned all human beings into her soldiers to fight against the enemy. Damn, it's hot. Black Zetsu in the sleeve groaned and stared at the light ball in the hand of perfect form Kinsusanu, full of fear. The principle of this technique seems to be the same as Mother's expansion truth-seeking ball. The sky for hundreds of miles was shrouded in golden flashes. The blazing temperature eroded the void. Because of the light, destruction and new life coexisted. Looking into the distance, Kinsusanu was holding a huge light ball in his hand. It was as terrifying as the sun, constantly absorbing the photons of the outside world to expand its size. Anything that came into contact with it would instantly evaporate. On the other hand, the world inside the light sphere was warm, peaceful, and full of vitality. It was as if as long as this devastated world was destroyed, the constantly expanding new world inside the light sphere would replace it. I have an immortal body. She stared fearlessly at the ball of light that was getting closer and closer, or rather, the sun that was getting closer and closer. At the same time, her aura rose and her face was solemn. It was as if she was ready to fight to the death with Dustless. But in Black Jew's ears, his confidence was lacking. As the saying goes, there is always someone stronger than the strong. If Kagaya was really undying and fearless, there would be no need for her to waste infinite Tsukuyomi to create her own soldiers to fight the invaders from the other world. Just like Uchiha Madara, he didn't see Kagaya's peerless talent and thought that he was invincible. In fact, in Kagaya's eyes, he was just a clown. This world is an important nursery for me. Let's change to another world to fight to the death. Kagaya's line of sight expanded, and the situation of the entire world was visible at a glance. She didn't care about Dustless. Her slender fingers elegantly stretched out of her sleeve, and with a flick of her fingers, ripples splashed in the void. In an instant, an extremely overbearing aura overflowed from her body, and Kaguya transformed into a peerless goddess who controlled everything in the world. Time and space were rapidly distorted. With a delicate shout, the world in front of her suddenly began to shift and become a strange world. Heaven's defense. The world reflected in her line of sight was completely different, and it became an unknown mysterious space full of dissolved acid. Dustless was suddenly forcibly pulled into this strange world. Plop, caught off guard, Kensusanoo fell directly into the ocean full of acid. The invincible Kensusanoo was dismembered and melted into nothingness in the blink of an eye. Only the golden energy ball that gathered in the sky was left. Want to devour me? Then I'll devour your world of dissolved acid first. With a sinister smile, Dustless's body emerged from the acid sea, and he looked at Kaguya with a gloomy face. At the same time, he waved his hands suddenly, and the huge light ball began to expand at a speed that was difficult to see with the naked eye. Turn into ashes with your world. The golden energy ball expanded without limit, and in a short period of time, its volume was several times larger than before. No matter what it touched, it turned into ashes and evaporated. Including the dissolved acid of Kensusanoo, which had previously melted, after boiling for a while, it was still evaporated easily. The constantly expanding golden light created a new space and devoured everything in the original world. It could be said that it was both a creation and a destruction technique. It was completely similar to Kaguya's expansion truth-seeking jade. This was one of the moves that Dustless used the glint fruit's awakening state and Kensusanoo. It was not inferior to Kaguya's expansion truth-seeking jade. This little brat really wants to kill us all. Taking a deep breath, Kaguya clenched her fists and said in a suppressed voice. If it was an ordinary technique, she could absorb it, but light was not a technique. In such a serious situation, there were only two choices. Either she braced herself and was swallowed by the golden light, or she passively avoided the battle. Without thinking, Kaguya directly tore the space and jumped in without hesitation. She was not a masochist. Even if she had an immortal body, she did not dare to fight head-on. And this strange light ball gave her an extremely dangerous feeling. Even if she had an immortal body, she would not be able to recover. Stupid woman, this is what I've been waiting for. Seeing this, Dustless's mouth raised a strange smile. He stared at the closed dark space that had not yet disappeared. His eyes turned and emitted a surge of eye power. The world-destroying light ball disappeared along with Dustless. Chapter 379. In a strange space full of ice and snow, the void was distorted, and ripples spread out. The small vortex gradually enlarged, and a figure drilled out of it. Taking a closer look, it was Kaguya who was forced to retreat by Dustless. The ability of light, it's really tricky. That kid with a mortal body can steal the ability of a god. It's really enviable. Clenching her fists, a pleasant voice of admiration sounded in the void. The soft magnetic voice full of admiration lingered in the sky for a long time without dispersing. There was no one in the boundless ice and snow world. There is no doubt that the person who spoke is Kaguya. Thinking of Dustless's strange move, she sincerely sighed. Mother, that Flash kid is our enemy. Black Zetsu in the robe didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Kaguya's words made him speechless. Although he also quite appreciates Dustless, after all, to be able to rely on his own strength to fight Kaguya, the ancestor of chakra, is not something a mortal can do. But in the final analysis, the two sides have different standpoints and are destined to be enemies. Of course I know this. Hearing this, Kaguya faintly responded. After all, their standpoints are different. For Dustless, she only appreciates him and has no other complicated thoughts. That kid actually wants to give it to me. Thinking of Dustless's arrogant words before, Kaguya's murderous intent was awe-inspiring. Dustless shamelessly said that he would put a collar on her. This is no longer a simple insult. It's a direct slap in the face, trampling on her dignity. All living things are under my control, a mere ant wants to possess me, a child of a concubine doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. With a snort, Kagaya's murderous intent was awe-inspiring. Dustless's ambition to become the Jinchuriki of the ten-tailed beast also means that Kagaya will lose her freedom again and live in the cage built for her by Dustless. Kacha, a powerful energy fluctuation suddenly came from the void, and the calm horizon suddenly twisted. The small vortex gradually enlarged as if it was being torn apart by some special power. In the blink of an eye, a dark black hole nearly 1,000 meters in size could be clearly seen. After a few breaths of time, it was filled with golden light. An unprecedented golden ball of light fell with Dustless's voice and swallowed Huey. The life and death of the people of this world have nothing to do with me, and the fate of whoever you decide is also your own will. However, there is one thing that you seem to have not understood. Dustless, who was floating in the sky, came into view. He stared at Huey, who was swallowed by the ball of light, with a contemptuous smile. His pupils dilated, and his cold voice echoed in the void. I am the one who controls your life. Your life is in my hands, not the heavens. As soon as he finished speaking, the world of ice and snow was swallowed by the energy ball that was magnified without limit. Everything that came into contact with the ball of light was annihilated and turned into nothingness. At the same time, a new and unfamiliar space was born. You will never understand in this lifetime. Retracting his gaze, Dustless's eyes were calm again. Huey would never understand how he invaded, but in fact, it was very simple. Back then, when he defeated Obito in the system, Dustless obtained all of Obito's abilities, including his Mangekyo ability. The moment Huey used Heaven's Defense, he used God's Might to swallow the golden energy ball and put it into a different space. At the same time, he used God's Might again to resonate with Huey's space. That was how he invaded. The process was simple and direct, but in fact, it was extremely difficult. The gap between the techniques had to be grasped very accurately. Gone with the wind with your ambition. Farewell, Huey. A new world was born in a different space. Flowers, trees, birds, and beasts were all there. The fresh air of nature rushed into the ear and nose, and a strange sense of familiarity arose spontaneously. It was completely different from the previous world of snow. When he looked up, he saw that the entire world had undergone a tremendous change. It was different from the truth-seeking jade, but the principle was almost the same. The truth-seeking jade was a transformation of the 7 natures of the 5 elements and yin and yang. Light was a unique special attribute, and it could be said to be able to destroy and create the world. This old monster is really troublesome. Scratching his head with a headache, Wu Chen's eyes flashed with surprise. Following his line of sight, no one could remain calm when they saw the scene in front of them. Being attacked by Dustless's sudden attack, Huey was caught off guard and was hit. Her body was constantly swallowed by the golden light ball. What was shocking was that while she was being swallowed, her body was rapidly recovering. The next second after being annihilated, a new body was condensed. Imprisoning her in my body, I should be able to do the same. Dustless's eyes were shining, and the covetousness in his eyes was undisguised. His gaze was naked and direct, and it was full of longing. Mysterious runes appeared all over his body, and the ancient sound of Sanskrit drifted out. An ancient aura crossed the eternal space and quietly descended to the world. Looking up, Dustless's body changed strangely again. The light was thousands of feet long, and it was like a shining person covered in the sun. His whole body was covered with endless devouring power that could suck the vast universe. Just as he was about to absorb Huey into his body, another change occurred. Suddenly, weak ripples splashed in the void, and the weak ripples merged into the void. It was silent and extremely weak, like a breeze that was not worth mentioning. The moment it came into contact with Dustless, the situation changed dramatically. The weak ripples turned into a destructive storm that annihilated the sky. Time and space were distorted beyond recognition, and it was a mess. Dustless, who didn't realize it, was hit by an unprecedented attack and was directly thrown out. It's not Otsutsuki Kagaya, this special power is not chakra, nor does it belong to the category of immortal technique, let alone taijutsu. His face changed dramatically, and he stared at the dark space in front of him. Where his line of sight focused, he could clearly see countless blood mist filling the air. The majestic power that crushed the sky made even Dustless's calmness stunned. On the contrary, Huey, who escaped from Dustless's awe-inspiring attack, had an ugly expression on her face, and there was a faint fear in her eyes. Chapter 380. Taking a deep breath, Dustless forcibly suppressed the shock in his heart. His pupils overflowed with blood as he stared at the black hole in front of him, and his eyes flashed with horror. Breaking the void with a snap of the fingers, are you kidding me? Even with Dustless's unchanging heart, he was shocked beyond words. He and Kagaya, including Uchiha Obito, can use space ninjutsu at will, but there is an essential difference between breaking the void with brute force. To some extent, the reason why Dustless can tear the space is because of the ability of Kamui, and the mysterious enemy who suddenly appeared is completely with his own pure strength. Especially the airwave that just bounced him away, Dustless felt that he was particularly fragile, no different from a lonely boat in the sea, as long as the other party can pinch him to death. Humph, no matter who you are, people who disturb my good things will end up the same, death. Dustless's Rinnegan was filled with endless killing intent. His tone was as cold as ice. He is not the kind of person who will resign himself to adversity. This is his belief in life. Being slapped in the face and not biting back, this is not his style of seeking death, and the word fear is not in Dustless's dictionary. Dustless's Rinnegan opened wide, and the focus of his sight was the bottomless black hole. The surging eye power with the anger of Dustless surged out. Ninjutsu has no limit, it is completely different from person to person, the strong is strong, and the weak is weak. Mahabharata. In the center of the black hole, invisible ripples with white light spread out, and the boiling airwaves swept away the fallen leaves, dispersing the endless darkness and blood mist, and in the blink of an eye, the sky was restored to clear. It's just a so-so. Seeing the black smoke being swallowed by the airwaves, Dustless's mouth raised a smile. In less than a moment, the smile on the corner of the mouth directly stiffened. The darkness and blood mist that had been swallowed by the Mahabharata boiled up again. Its momentum was monstrous, covering the sky. It was so arrogant that it was almost liquefied. It was extremely oppressive. Dustless seemed to hear the sharp screams of 10,000 ghosts, and his mind was filled with a roar. After a few breaths of time, he regained his clarity. He stared at the black hole surrounded by blood mist with a gloomy and fearful expression. Little brat, that woman is not as simple as you think. There are 3,000 universes, 3,000 worlds, and thousands of races in the vast universe. There are countless experts. I am a god, and similarly, there are gods who are stronger than me. The space beside him shattered silently, and a beautiful figure jumped out from it. It was Huey G, who was holding a sharp bone. She landed beside Dustless with a serious expression. The voice was gentle and pleasant. It was undoubtedly Kagaya. Moving his feet, he turned around and examined Huey G. Wuchen frowned. This fellow was actually unscathed and full of energy. Of course, she was not completely unscathed. At the very least, Huey G's face was pale. So what? The sky is high. When the time comes, as long as I take you, I will be able to live freely in the world. Even if you are a god, you will not be able to stop my progress. Looking at Huey G expressionlessly, Dustless's eyes were filled with death light. Just as he was about to swallow her and fly away, a sudden voice startled Dustless. Thousands of years have passed, but you still haven't changed, a light and teasing voice quietly spread. The sound wave that came was filled with the smell of blood, and a fiery red demonic figure came into view. Dustless frowned. This dense murderous aura made him feel like he was in purgatory. Huh? The light voice was a little surprised. After silently observing for a while, it said with a teasing tone, Huey, you are an old monster who has lived for thousands of years. You actually have this kind of fetish. You stole an energetic, Mahabharaya. Bang! The fiery red figure was directly blown up by the invisible airwave. The whole body turned into a demonic blood mist, and the blood beads scattered in the void. The strange blood beads floated in the void, and suddenly emitted a dark red blood light. It was like the summons of God, and once again reassembled to form the previous figure. The fairy-like pretty face appeared again. Her red lips were raised, and her sight also fell on Wu Chen's body. Her eyes, which were as resplendent as gemstones, flashed with surprise. TSK, no wonder you old witch would like him. He is strong, and his eyes are not weaker than yours. TSK. If it were me, I might also choose such a spouse as my husband, a strange voice sounded. The beautiful woman in red did not care about the situation. She completely ignored Dustless and Huey, and muttered to herself. The pleasant voice was deliberately amplified and lingered in the void for a long time without dissipating. What a strange ninjutsu. It seems to be similar to the ability of my glint fruit. It can also ignore physical attacks. As a man, Dustless's skin was as thick as the city wall. He turned a deaf ear to the woman in red's ridicule and thought secretly in his heart. However, the thin-skinned Huey couldn't keep her face. As the goddess of Uno, she could treat it as a fart and pretend that she didn't hear anything. Dustless, the person involved, was indeed present. Naturally, he had to take care of his face. The bone spear in his hand surged with cold light, and the space in front of him shattered. He jumped into the dark, mysterious space. When he reappeared, he was already beside the woman in red. The bone blade in his hand rose and fell, and directly slashed towards the neck of the woman in red. The edge of the blade could easily flatten large mountains. After thousands of years, you still haven't changed at all. The woman in red was shocked, and her face was calm. Obviously, she knew that Huey would suddenly attack, and there was a smile in her red eyes. Her dress trembled, overflowing with dark red blood light. The luster condensed into a prison and bound Huey in it. Ah! I've already figured out this trick of yours 1,000 years ago. The woman in red's eyes turned, and she was extremely proud. No matter who you are, whether she is the sacred tree or Jubi, Otsutsuki Kagaya, they are all part of my power. Those who touch them without permission will be killed without mercy. Golden Will Reincarnation Explosion. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.